It's the Church of Jesus Christ.
Who is our nation's capital named after?
Our nation's capital?
Who is it named after?
I have no idea.
The thing I would urge people to remember is that history is to a culture what the memory is to an individual. If one day I wake up and I've lost all my memory and I have amnesia and I don't know who I am, where I live, who these people are in my house, I'm very lost. My world is chaos. So it is if a culture doesn't know its history. It's lost its collective memory, and as a result, we'll be living in chaos. I think the degree to which we have forgotten our history or abandoned it is the degree to which we're living in chaos today.
One of the big problems is that the American history books have been rewritten, and God has been erased, and along with him, so also has the truth been erased.
The things that are going on in our culture where progressives mainly are trying to either rewrite or get rid of historical aspects of the country are not necessarily based on particular grievances they have, but an attack on the fundamental values and the premises of our country.
One aspect of this is by accentuating the negative in American history and downplaying the positive aspects.
What the progressives are doing is they take out all of the worst moments of American history, all the negative things about American history. Like any country, America has its negative side. But then they make that the entirety of our history, the entirety of our country. So for example, Thomas Jefferson, yes, he was a slaveholder. You know, there were aspects of his life that we don't approve of today. But he was also the author of the Declaration of Independence. He was also the governor of Virginia, a revolutionary leader. He was also the president. There are many great things about Jefferson, but they don't want you to think about that because they want to define Jefferson only in terms of his intersection with the slaveholding at that time.
Fighting over history isn't just an arcane issue. For example, the dystopian novel 1984 by former socialist George Orwell presents a totalitarian nightmare of a future. Big Brother and the totalitarian state controls everything, and they constantly rewrite history because, as the book states, who controls the past controls the future. In fact, to teach or even think about the nation's true history, good or bad, became a thought crime. 1984 is the source of that phrase, thought crime.
There are thought criminals who maintain resistance.
Here's an example. When America was born, there was slavery in this nation, as was the case virtually around the world. But the left argues that this curse, which was later uprooted at the cost of 600,000 Americans in the Civil War, was somehow unique to America. The 1619 Project of the New York Times is an example of this revisionist history.
I really think we're in a cultural war right now, and those of us who believe in traditional values, we are counterculture. When you have school systems around the country who have adapted the apolitical, anti-political history of America's 1619 Project. In the New York Times, there were 20 Black journalists who came together to author what they call the 1619 Project, and they identified America's founding as in 1619 and not 1776, and that was the year that 20 Black slaves came on the shores. And they said because of America's history with slavery, that everything that developed from that, capitalism, was therefore invalid. And so they have unfortunately had the support of major corporations, and they have taken this anti-American doctrine around to public school systems in all parts of the country. And so this is just one expression of this denigration of American values.
Now we see many forces in our country, the 1619 Project and others like it, that are saying America was an illicit, improper, immoral nation from the beginning. And the reason they do that is because they say, well, look at July 4th, 1776, and we had slavery, and we had, you know, problems of inequality in other areas. Women couldn't vote. There were problems. Well, that's like judging a baby's life on the day it's born. America was founded on July 4th, 1776. And the ideals should be our judge. And so, have we reached our ideals? Were those the right goals? That's the question to be asked. Not were we reaching those goals on the day we were born, but were those the right goals? And then the second question is, how are we doing on those goals? And of course they're the right goals. Of course, God creating us all equal, that's a great goal. America's greatness is because we've been marching in a steady path toward those goals.
Well, there is a war on American history, and it's a war over the narrative of American history. And the people of the progressive side could say, well, everything that they talk about are facts, like that's history. Yes, they are facts of history, that's true. But what is the narrative? Their narrative is that America was founded on all these evil things, that it's a country of oppression, that it's a country of bigotry and discrimination. That's the entirety of America. Whereas a more traditional narrative, a more nuanced narrative would say, yes, there are negative aspects of our country, but the overall theme of America is freedom and liberty and progress.
A lot of people act like they're ashamed of America, ashamed of its past. Imperfect? Of course it is. People were involved, and therefore it's imperfect because people are imperfect.
I would not be surprised if they went after Dr. King because of his Christian faith. You got to understand, this has nothing to do with race. It has everything to do with using race as a bludgeon to try to destroy civic institutions in America. It has nothing to do with race. They're using race, and they've hijacked the civil rights movement in their quest to undermine this country's founding values.
It's very problematic because a lot of our young people are being taught that America is an evil country. It's an oppressive country, and that is not true American history. What is remarkable is that America had an Emancipation Proclamation, and if you look at the history of America, there have been plenty of mistakes made, but throughout it all, there were people trying to correct those mistakes.
It's a Marxist goal, and that is to decimate this nation, to undermine it, and they are hijack the civil rights movement to do that.
You have to understand, they do not believe that America can be fixed. It can only be destroyed, and on the rubble of our Judeo-Christian past, a new America can emerge that is free from racism, that is free from classism and sexism, and that is equal for everybody, and we all live happily ever after. I've exaggerated it a little bit, but not much. So the question is, what do you do with the freedoms of the Constitution? What do you do with our Christian history? And the answer is, it has to be destroyed.
One could argue that what the war on American history is, in effect, is cancel culture being applied to the nation itself.
History matters, both the good and the bad. We got to teach the whole picture. We got to teach the good and the bad of American history so that we can learn from it, because if not, we won't remember. Future generations won't even know how we ended up where we are today.